Recently, I did a post about how being leaner does not necessarily mean you're healthier. And on the similar note, sometimes complimenting someone on their weight loss is not really the right way to go. So I thought it'd be good for us to kind of elaborate on this, because we both have personal experience with having lost weight in the past and being complimented on it when it was not for healthy reasons.
I had, when I was ill and I came out of hospital, I had lost 50 pounds and I was very malnourished. I was not in a healthy way. And the first time I went back to the gym, I was weaker than ever. I was the healthiest I've ever been, but I was obviously very, very slim. And I remember someone commenting and saying how shredded I was, as if that was a good thing. I was like, I'm like really, really, really malnourished and really, really not healthy. But they just saw six-pack and thought, yeah, he's lean, I like that.
And when I was 14, and many of you guys know my eating disorder background, but I started to skip lunch because I was under this idea that being thinner was prettier, more popular, and so on. And almost right away, I started being complimented on my weight loss. Keep in mind, again, I was only 14 years old. You're looking so much prettier lately because you're skinnier. And naturally, it made me think, well, if I look prettier now that I've lost a little bit of weight, imagine how it'll be when I've lost even more weight. So of course I kept going down that path, and eventually ended up at, just over 80 pounds, which is very, very light. And everyone was saying, you're so pretty, you look great, you look so healthy. And I wasn't healthy. I was not eating. I was anorexic. I was binge eating. I was bulimic. There's nothing healthy about anything that I was doing to have accomplished that much smaller size. And yet that's the response that I was getting from the general public.
I think there's a kind of assumption that there's a linear relationship between body fat levels and health. And especially in the bodybuilding world and the fitness world, when someone is at their best condition, it's always when they're leanest. So both of us have dieted down to very low levels of body fat. We are both very aware that chances are most people at that point feel like shit. That isn't necessarily the pinnacle of health, even if it's the pinnacle of aesthetics within the competition world. I think there's a kind of reinforcement factor that happens in the fitness industry a lot, especially people that compete or do fitness modeling or anything like that, because they have their in-season shape. They have photos on social media, and this was the same with me, where they were looking their leanest. And because this is a kind of competitive world, you're inviting comments like bodybuilding especially is about being judged. You post photos and people like critique your physique. That's part and parcel of the culture. And I think what happens for a lot of people is when they diet down to this level because they're seen as like being at the pinnacle of their sport, when they start regaining weight afterwards, it's a very kind of difficult psychological thing to get to grips with.
Yes.
Because suddenly they feel out of shape compared to where they were before. So it's almost like if someone's body weight starts here and they diet for a contest, this for them shows them at the pinnacle. And then when they start regaining, even though this is a very healthy, normal part of the bodybuilding cycle, it's almost like when their body fat gets up to here, suddenly they feel out of shape, even though comparatively they feel they're still a lot leaner than they were. And I think this is part of the reason why people kind of idealize extreme thinness within our industry.
It's really nice to see in recent years people have started to shift away a little bit from the heavy diet culture message and talk more about the importance of, healthy behaviors over just the way that you look. And so to reiterate the points from my recent post, rather than relying just on someone's body fat to judge their health or to assume their health, there are many other variables to consider, including but not limited to their relationship with food, relationship with their bodies, relationship with exercise, the quality of their overall diet, what else? Hormonal health, mood disturbances, quality of life. Am I missing anything?
Probably, but I can't remember the list that you've been doing.
Libido is another one.
A big one.
I think it's important to take all of these into consideration rather than jumping to the conclusion that someone is or is not healthier simply based off how they look. Something to think about.